Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Thursday, March 25th. I'm your host, Rod Bloom. Joining me today is Chad P71. How's it going, Chad?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing just great. Hey, it's good to talk to you. It's been a little while since you joined us here.
Yes, sir.
So, the Browns have been, or Andrew Berry maybe more specifically, have been doing some things, making some headlines, kind of impressing some people. So I thought it'd be a great time to have you on and kind of get your impressions of what's going on and just, maybe talk a little bit of Browns news, a little bit of free agency, and maybe touch on the draft a little bit. So let's just start with the happenings of today, I guess, and wanted to get your thoughts on Jadeveon Clowney and his visit. Of course, he left without a contract, but I don't know if that what that means. I don't know if they were going to sign him on the spot or not. So, where do you think the Browns stand with him? You think there's a shot of signing him? How would you feel about them signing him? And what do you think the next step is there?
Well, I'll start from the beginning, and I have to credit Benjamin Albright because he was the first I heard say this about Clowney. Originally, that he was going to wait until he felt, Clowney that is, felt 100% ready to go for another team before he was going to start talking to anybody. It was interesting that the very first team that he picked was Cleveland.
Yeah.
So, and the way that I view it in just talking about him, if I'm Clowney, the Browns have now set the bar. So here's the bar, and then if he goes to any other teams, they're going to have to beat what the Browns proposed. And I don't mean just money either. He's 28 years old. He's not going to get a lot more contracts, most likely. He's probably looking for one good one. He's going to want to make a run. So it's going to have to be a complete package. I do not think Andrew Berry's going to overpay him. He has not shown that with anybody else, and I don't think it's going to start here. So I imagine that it was a really good, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for here, is a sign that the very first team that he met with was Cleveland. And now, once again, I posted this earlier, that the Browns facility is absolutely phenomenal. D and Jimmy have invested a lot of money in making that facility great for players. You got a team that was close, so close to making a divisional run. You got head coach of the year. You've got a smart GM that's already added talent to the team. He can see that. We're a couple pieces away from having a solid football team, great foundation. The future looks bright. It's a very promising picture to give to such a pro. That, look, you can come here and have an impact not only on the field, but with developing players off the field. You have this wonderful facility. There's a lot of good things that go with coming to the Browns. The one thing you're not going to get, though, is overpaid. And so that's where it's going to come down to. If for a large money, it's not going to be with the Browns. If he's looking for a real run, it will be with the Browns. So that's where I think he's at, or kind of an idea where he might be at. As far as adding him, I think it's an excellent idea to add him. Yeah, there's some downfalls, there's some takeaways. But when you have a chance to add a veteran talent like that with these young kids to look up to when they're coming in right out of the draft, I mean, that's building that next generation. And I said this in a post earlier too, that AB's not looking, or Andrew Berry, I should say, is not looking for one season to win. He is looking for 3, 4, 5 seasons down the road that this team continues to be strong, instead of just going all in one year and then having to break it all apart. So I think he's still performing at a high level. While he didn't have any sacks, he ended up with 28 pressures. He's still turning. He only played 425 snaps last year, but the potential's there. And if he's with the right team, the right trainers, the right conditioning staff, the right coaches who will use him in the right way,
Mm-hmm.
he could be a very promising piece for the Browns, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think as far as it being a good sign that Cleveland is the first place, or first team he visited, as far as showing probably where his priorities are right now, as far as strictly looking for the most money versus some combination. Obviously, most guys aren't just going to throw the money out the window. Money and the fit and the opportunity to win. So hopefully you're right there. But yeah, I mean, I think he could be. I think he could definitely be a nice piece. Definitely be interesting to see, how all that would fit together on the defensive line. I think give Cleveland a lot of flexibility, with what they would have, and plus see what they would do going forward, with the rest of the line. So we'll see. And you think it's going to be probably a little while before he makes any decision? I don't know how many other teams he's even looking at, or if he has other visits set up at this point.
I have not read that he has any other visits set anywhere else. I imagine he just wants to take a minute to think about it. But in all fairness to him, Andrew Berry's not going to wait on anybody either. So the longer he waits, Andrew Berry's still working.
Yeah.
And he's very liable to go a different direction because there are more options out there. And then that's if he even wants to make another move. This might have been a circumstance for Clowney, but Andrew Berry may say, hey, look, we're looking good in the draft at 26 or whatever he wants to do, move up, move back, whatever. We don't really have to add you to this team. We're no longer interested. And this is the first time in as long as I can remember where the Browns are in the driver's seat when it comes to free agency, because they don't need anybody and to add people. Whereas in the past it was, we have to get this guy because we're so bad. And
we got to pay whatever
we
have to pay. Yeah.
Right. We got to pay whatever we got to pay. We got to have this guy. We've got to do this. There's none of that anymore. And while I react with emotions, Andrew Berry is not going to be that way. He is going to be very calm and collected and work through this process to where the Browns are never be at the mercy of a player. It's going to be, hey, look, if you want to come be a part of this great program, we would like to have you here, but it's going to be on our terms. And if you're not okay with that, we understand. We're going to go a different direction. And man, this is just such a great feeling from the fans' point of view, is that we're no longer chasing what could be. And it's a fundamental build from the ground up, and they're not going to get away from it.
Yeah, so what type of contract do you think, if you had to guess, what type of contract do you think the Browns put on the table for Clowney at this point?
I probably some, dollar wise, I really can't say. It can't be a lot because they don't have the money to do that. And it's not going to be the same. I forget what it was that they offered him before. It's a rather large contract, 3 years. But it's going to be it would be something probably to the tune of $2 to $6 million this year, and then grow next year and the next year, I do believe that they would probably try to stay in that 3-year contract. It's probably going to be close to what McKinley's getting, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe with some options. If you make, the Super Bowl or Pro Bowl or whatever, you'll have nice kicks. But Andrew Berry really has to be careful what he's doing right now because of how many free agents we are key to this football team that he has to keep. So it wouldn't shock me if it's just a 1-year deal for this year, but he's going to have to restructure some contracts to get a reasonable number.
Yeah. Like if it's a 1-year, whatever, $8 or $10 million deal, yeah, that's going to put him in, kind of close to a bind. But yeah, if they go 2 or 3 years and don't put a lot this season, or or go the signing bonus route, things like that. You know what, Chad? That's why those guys are in charge, because they can make the money work. They can figure it out, and I think there are some contracts that can be renegotiated. If guys are willing to do that for the Browns, hopefully they can do some things there, if need be, to land a guy like this.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, it comes down to they have to be mindful of the guys who are yet to be extended. So, yeah, I mean, Baker and Denzel Ward and Nick Chubb, primarily, those 3 guys that they have to figure out, where to come up with the money, because you have to keep it. I want him to keep all 3 of those guys. You got to keep at least two out of 3 of those guys,
Yeah.
So you're going to have to come up with the money. And that's where the creativity comes in. And I guess maybe we shouldn't worry about that, because, I keep hearing all over the place there's really no salary cap, because the good teams always just find a way to figure this stuff out. But, it's foreign territory for us, because we're not used to having talented guys that are going to be due money like this.
Right.
We're used to having just teams devoid of talent, up until a few years ago, and never really having to worry about, we always had to worry about rebuilds, not having to keep guys and figuring out where money was coming from.
Right. And then, like I said, we've also never had a GM like Andrew Berry, because no football team has. He is going about this a different way, and he's not locked into old school football. And then I also see the same thing. Well, analytics says this. He's not full analytics either. He's this combination of old football and made into its own formula that's going to be done his way, that's not going to be like anything we've seen before. And until something happens, we don't honestly know what Andrew Berry is going to do, because he's not playing inside of a set rule book. He's going to make his own as he goes here. And there's some things that I've watched him do. While like I've said in my account before, I don't agree with everything Andrew Berry's done, but 99% I do. And I'm watching him do certain things, and you can almost see that he's building his own legacy his way, and has got the rest of the world shut out and doesn't care what they think or say. So it's just fun.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing it his way. Like you said, I don't think he has a certain set of rules, but I'm gonna tell you, Chad, I think right now this is kind of a perfect storm for the Browns, being that they're still under Baker's rookie contract, and the cap space that the Browns had going into this season, where the cap dropped, and a lot of guys are willing to take these 1-year deals, where other teams don't have the ability to sign some of these guys. I think it's kind of a different ball game this year than what it may be even next season, when the cap probably goes back up, and guys are looking for different types of contracts. But right now, Andrew Berry is playing the hand he's been dealt, and he's just been masterful. And it just fits perfectly with where the Browns stand as a team, and with what the Browns want to do.
Yep.
And this has been, I'll keep saying this has been a 2-year plan since Barry and Stefanski walked in to build this team. They put a 2-year plan together. It was get the offense together the first year and polish out the defense the second year, and that's exactly what they're doing. And this team's going to be ready. We don't know exactly what's going to happen during the season, but they are going to field a team that's going to be able to compete with everybody. Let's just put it that way.
I agree completely.
So David Njoku was active on Twitter today. Is he just excited now to be a Brown and all bought in, or is he just kind of still a little bit edgy? What do you think?
I think Njoku thought his career was going to go a different direction, and while some people didn't agree with what he had to say, I kind of look at it two different ways. Should he be on Twitter running? No, probably not. But you know what? This is the world that we live in now. It's not like it used to be. And in the same breath, you have to realize is while we talk about Baker Mayfield has been through multiple systems, everybody on the defense. I mean, there's a different defensive coordinator every 6 months on that side of the ball too. Or excuse me, I apologize. Let me rephrase that. I can't believe I said defense. When we talk about Baker Mayfield being in multiple offenses, so is everybody else on the offense who's had to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
Every 6 months, their plan is changing along with Baker's. I apologize. I said defense. I have no idea.
That's all right.
So he had to learn new systems too. And last year, I'm sure there was a small smack in the face when Hooper signed and, they go to the draft. And, and he's like, well, wait, I'm trying to learn this system too. And he's got an immense amount of talent.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the frustration over the years has been built up. And then he, like everybody else, thought for sure that he was probably on the trade block. And, when everything around you's not stable, it's hard for you to be stable.
Mm-hmm.
So now that everything's stable, he's here, he's getting his money. I'm sure his confidence is a little bit better, and he believes so much in himself that he's trying to project it out to everybody else. Look, I'm here, I'm ready to go, and I would rather see that fire and passion for the Browns and wanting to be here and wanting to do it. I understood what he was trying to say about the money. It maybe didn't come out the right way. $6 million is no big deal or whatever. Maybe he's to the point where that $6 million is not important to him, and he just didn't say it in a way that it meant to come out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sure that offended some people, but from the standpoint of a professional athlete and what they can make, I can see where he's coming from. Plus, right. What you're saying that winning and maybe something as simple as job security or something are more important to him.
Right, yeah, because now he knows he's here. They don't want to trade him because I'm sure they had the opportunity to. They said, look, we want you here. We want you to be part of this football team. We're going to make sure you're involved. We're going to help you grow as a player, which they did. His blocking improved 100% in one season. And so now he's coming into the second season in the same system with the coach of the year. He doesn't have to learn anything new. If he had that big of a jump during a pandemic, with a brand new coach and a new system, what is it going to look like when he's not learning everything new and they go back to having normal practices and everything that goes along with that? He could see a massive jump this year in his production and be the
Yeah.
player that he wants to be.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think last season was a tough season to judge a lot of these guys on, especially if you're including the first 4, 6, 8 games of the season. When guys were still learning and growing together and things like that. And we saw, I think, a lot closer to the full potential of the team over the last 6 or 8 games. To know what the team can be, but. Yeah, it's still only one season, so you got to figure there's still room there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, had all these players been drafted to the Kevin Stefanski system year one, could you know what it would look like now?
yeah, yeah,
So that's how we kind of got to look at a lot of these players. It's like, okay, that whatever happened before, like before Kevin Stefanski doesn't really count. It's what happened after, because he's putting a program together that these players are buying into, they believe in, and this is not the same old Browns. And now we can start to judge players. This will be the year where you can really judge players who have been here for a while and the new players at the same level, because everybody's in the same system and they're growing together. 1 year under your belt, horrible year outside of the team, great
hmm
year inside the team. This is when it should all come together.
yeah. And things don't matter before Stefanski, but Hugh Jackson seems to still think that they do. So I'm going to use that little segue. Hugh just can't let things go. He still wants to act like he wasn't given a fair shot, and didn't things weren't his fault, and he doesn't throw people under buses and things like this. So Hugh was
Yeah.
Hugh was mixing it up on Twitter today. After being on with Ken Carmen today. So why don't you give us the rundown, Chad, and your thoughts on one Hugh Jackson?
I just think Hugh, only back in the day, bought in, and he came in, and I think I've said this 100 times. The day that Pep Hamilton left was the day that it all went south, and it really escalated up to when Mike Silver posted that the Browns were not interested in Jimmy Garoppolo at all, which was an out-and-out lie. They would have tried to trade for him. The Patriots were not trading with anybody in the AFC, and surely not going to be the Cleveland Browns. One.
Yeah.
And then his daughter ended up getting involved in it, and it just escalated. And then he didn't want to start Baker Mayfield. There's still part of me, while I don't know this to be fact, I don't think he ever wanted Baker Mayfield. He didn't want a rookie quarterback. He wanted to go to Tyrod, and I went to training camp every day that year that I could go, because that was before they started limiting how many times you could go to camp. So I was there for almost a lot of Baker Mayfield's rookie camp. He
hmm
was so much better than Tyrod Taylor. It wasn't even funny. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't even close. And I watched as Hugh would rotate out. They started Mayfield out with the first team, and he just absolutely dominated. They moved him to the second team. He was dominating there. They moved him to the third team. He was dominating on the third team. He was dominating our first team defense they started him out against the third team defense. He blew them up to the second team defense. So what he ended up doing, as training camp went on, he had Baker Mayfield with all the third and fourth team guys going against the first team defense, and Tyrod Taylor with the first team offense going against the third and fourth string defense. And Mayfield was still putting up, and while it was practice, he was still completing more passes. And I had noted this all through training camp back then, going, well, why is Baker not starting? I mean, this is
Yeah.
insane. And I think Hugh got overwhelmed, and then it just snowballed, and then the whole thing with Todd Haley, and he kept putting it out on Twitter. And if there's anybody that should not be on Twitter, it's an NFL football coach.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
You know, and so we probably should just let it go and ignore him. But he needs to. He's looking for his second chance too, and I'm not sure he's going to get one.
I don't know if he is either, but he's not helping himself by coming back at the Browns and the fans here. He's just not. I think he's got to be a man and admit his mistakes and, and kind of admit that he needs to grow from that, if anybody wants to bring him in anywhere. And I don't know if it's going to be as a head coach, that's for sure. But, maybe he can get back into football in some other capacity, but you got to be forthright. You got to admit that it was you and not just keep pointing fingers at everybody. Who wants to bring somebody on like that?
Nobody, because it wasn't
Right.
just the Browns; it was with the Raiders too.
That's true.
You
That's
know,
true.
so and he knows that Jimmy and D are not going to say anything back because they've moved on.
Yeah, there's no point in it.
And yeah, they're just not going to say anything, so he can say whatever he wants to anybody he wants, and they'll never respond, and they shouldn't respond because they don't need to respond. And the nice thing about it is that Hugh Jackson, John Dorsey, and Freddie Kitchens, while they did do some good things and stuff, the Haslams also learned what not to do in that whole process. And
Yeah.
that's why this team is running so much better now, is because there's no talk, there's no leaks. Nobody's leaking information to the media anymore. You're not going to get that. Andrew Berry's not talking to anybody. So what's coming out is going to be coming out from player agents, and he sees something in the building and tells a friend. And that's the only thing that's coming out of there. But there's nothing coming out from Andrew Berry, not like it used to be.
Yeah, and each time the Browns have brought in a new regime and a new coach, new GM, especially the last few, it's been, man, I hope Jimmy and D just kind of stay out of it. Let these guys run things and don't try to get in there and meddle and and kind of mess things up because if you bring in the right people, they don't need the owner in there telling them what to do all the time. That's why you bring in good people. So obviously this regime started off winning, so that there really hasn't probably been a temptation for the Haslams to do anything except maybe stand up and clap. But hopefully it'll stay that way. I think that's probably one of the main concerns with the Browns over the past few changes is, man, when are the Haslams going to kind of stick their nose in? And I'm not worried about that now, but that's kind of been a recurring theme, and I hope that that's something that they've learned too.
Oh, I'm sure they have. J.W. Johnson is a lot more involved now, and he is. I think he set this ship in the right direction. Paul DePodesta definitely has way more clout than he probably any other time. He has picked the two best coaches, the one we missed on, Sean McDermott, and one we got, Kevin Stefanski. I mean, for Kevin Stefanski to win Coach of the Year coming to the Cleveland Browns during a pandemic is unbelievable.
Oh
And
yeah.
he has from what I understand, just an outsider, the working relationship between Stefanski and Andrew Berry is absolutely incredible. There's no reason to I'll just sit back and watch your football team win, which is what Mr. Haslam wants the most. He wants to bring a winner to Cleveland because, and this is, I know we as fans get caught up into it and everything, but you think if you step back and think about this, if the Haslams bring a Super Bowl to the Cleveland Browns, everybody from the people who took care of the field to the owners are going to live in history forever. This story is going to be told over and again. They're going to make movies about this.
Yeah.
This will be one of the greatest sports stories to ever be told when it happens, and we're dang close. And that's all they want, just like we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think they just had to kind of learn some tough lessons along the way to get to a point where they had the right people in there, and it sure feels like everything's headed the right direction now. So let's just kind of look at free agency. I just kind of wanted to get your impressions. I think we're on the same team as far as thinking Andrew Berry's done, a pretty spectacular job. I think you can look at the individual players, and maybe you don't like every single signing, but when you look at the way the Browns have spent money and the guys they brought in and the positions they've addressed overall, I think everybody is giving the Browns kind of an A+ so far in free agency. And it started with John Johnson. Is that where you thought the Browns would start safety? I think most people thought it was going to be an edge rusher at first. And, how important a signing was that for you?
Huge. And yes, I did. Said it multiple times that I felt safety was the number one position they needed to address. And here's why. Joe Woods doesn't want to have a rookie safety. He proved that last year. And Zendejo did not play the way Joe Woods wanted him to play. He was out of position. He couldn't read an offense to save his life. He blew multiple games for being out of position. And when I did my breakdown of their defense, because Andrew Berry made a very specific statement about we have to improve the third down defense. So, okay, well, what do we got to do to improve the third down defense? Well, it starts with the safety. Now, I honestly think John Johnson was going to hit the market. I was like, there's no way this dude's going to hit the market. It's not going to happen. I mean, you're talking the second best player on the number one defense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to, and the leader of the defense. So not only was he the second best graded player, he's the leader of their defense. There's no way the Rams are going to let him go. I mean, it'd be like letting Aaron Donald go.
Yeah.
And they did. And then no way he's going to take a contract and not get top dollar. And I have no idea how that perfect storm happened, but this is absolutely amazing for the Browns. Now Joe Woods has somebody who's not going to take him long to pick up his system. And he has we now have a leader of the defense in the backfield who can see everything, who is absolutely an outstanding football player. And I mean, the guy has 90 tackles last year and only 8 missed. That is incredible. He has 31 stops.
Yeah, and he's 25 years old.
And he's 25 years old. And this is exactly what Joe Woods needed to start to build his defense the way he wants it. Because he had to start with that leader in the safety position that he felt comfortable with. And then on top of that, this takes all the pressure off of Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit does not need to go out week one, and have the absolute game of his life. He doesn't need to do that now. How Grant Delpit can develop and be, because we got him for 4 years on his rookie contract, missed the first year. There's no expectations for? I mean, you could ask anybody now. Do you expect Grant Delpit to have to save the defense week 3 this year? No, you don't. And that's exactly what he needed to grow into his position. So now, worst case scenario, you got John Johnson for 3 years. On the remaining year, you could, if you couldn't re-sign him, you could then move right into Grant Delpit, who's learned under him for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
How perfect is that?
Yeah. And then Ronnie Harrison, he has he's only got one more year in his contract, so it'd be interesting to see what the Browns do there as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they'll continue to address safety. Maybe he's not Andrew Berry's not going to be shy about figuring out how that all fits together. But John Johnson is certainly an anchor to the defense. That at a position that they really needed.
Yes, that was number one in my opinion. Anyways, it was the number one place that they needed to go first. Now the rest they could build.
Yeah. So next to John Johnson, which signings did you like the best? I'm not going to go through all the guys. I mean, and I probably don't even have them here in order. But I mean, obviously, I thought. Troy Hill adding a corner was extremely important because Greedy, we can't count. I can't count on Greedy. Okay, we have Denzel Ward, but Greedy Williams coming back from that injury, didn't play last year, and honestly, he didn't knock him dead as a rookie. But I mean, there's a learning curve, especially as a corner. So is he going to be better than he was as a rookie? Is he taking a step back because of the injury? We don't know. So adding, a talented corner, I think they'll continue to address the corner position as well.
Yes, and once again, breaking down that, when I broke down the defense, the slot corner, which was Kevin Johnson, did not play well. Did not play well enough at all. And Troy Hill was one of the best slot corners, nickel corner, however you want to, in the NFL last year.
Yeah.
So going from Kevin Johnson to Troy Hill is going to be huge on third downs. And to me, that was equal to the Johnson signing. The fact that they both played together, both on the number one defense, this will give Andrew Berry a chance to bring in a young corner through the draft. And he has 2 veteran players on a number one defense able to help, groom the rookie that they bring in. And we've got a slot corner that we've not had in forever. I mean, forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Browns have been beat across the middle for as long as I've been covering the football team.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah, it's been rough.
And it has been horrible. And that's going to hopefully end this year with the addition of Hill, who plays that position extremely well. And I am so excited. And Hill's allowed catch rate last year was 67.3%, which that's pretty good. Because you're also going against multi-million-dollar wide receivers who are paid to catch the football. They should. But
yeah, this isn't the 1970s anymore.
There is no such thing as a lockdown corner. These guys are catching the football, but what you got to do is not let them damage you after the catch.
Right.
And Kevin Johnson was allowing 75% of all his targets. That's a huge difference. When you look at that, you know what I mean? When you break it down through the games, there were a lot of games where Kevin Johnson would allow, for instance, against the New York Jets, he allowed 5 catches on 5 targets. Against Kansas City, it was 2 on 2. There was never a game last year other than week 1 where, well, I take that back. Hill only had 2 games of all last year where he allowed 100% completion rate on him. And that was week 1, which is obvious. I mean, everybody was kind of like out of it on week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had 2 targets against Seattle week 10. Other than that, he was dominant. And when it really mattered, when they got to, playing highly important games, he even stepped it up more. He completely shut down New England. He only allowed 3 catches on 7 targets last year. So I'm so excited to have have him on our team.
Yeah, so let's group these other guys together.
Sure.
Takk McKinley, Malik Jackson, Anthony Walker. Who are you most excited about there out of those 3 guys?
It's kind of like split. McKinley, because I'm excited to see what the team can do with him. Jackson, because they needed that interior pressure that he's going to bring. Walker, because of what his teammates said at Indianapolis about what a great locker room guy and leader on the field and mentor. So each one has one thing that I like, but honestly, Jackson's probably the one that's got me the most excited, because if they can get interior pressure, it's going to be a game changer this year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if between Malik Jackson, if Jordan Elliott can take a step forward, and then and then they've got Billups too. We'll see. Assuming that after the opt out that he's playing and ready to go and all that, the Browns have him for a season. So it's going to be a little bit different on the interior. And I'm forgetting Sheldon Richardson. I don't know how I'm forgetting him, but you put those 4 guys in a rotation, and obviously Sheldon Richardson is going to be out there most of the time, but you got those other 3 guys to rotate too.
Yes.
Man, that should be pretty strong, and then
it should be.
Yeah, should really help.
And I still think they're going to add somebody in the draft as well. So it's not going to be easy to make. I mean, they're going to keep maybe 5 guys on the 53, which I think it goes up this year. I can't quite pin down what is going to happen with the final roster. You're going to keep 5. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely room at defensive end. We'll see. That's obviously, since we're looking at Clowney, I think there's outside of Miles and Takk McKinley, I think it's kind of wide open after that.
Yes.
So we'll see what they do there. I could see him signing somebody and drafting somebody. And there's a couple guys on the roster have a shot, to make the team and contribute, but I don't think anybody else has a spot guaranteed on this team at defensive end. That's for sure.
No. There's very few spots on the defense that are going to be guaranteed for anybody. They're looking to remake our defense and improve it. And so you're going to have to fight to keep your spot this year. It's not going to be like the past where they draft 10 guys and all 10 make the team. That's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, so the Browns are bringing back Rashard Higgins. He gets paid a little bit more, $2.38 million for a season. Malcolm Smith. Cody Parkey, kind of, sort of. Not much money guaranteed on his deal. And JoJo Natson also. And JoJo Natson's deal is under $1 million. I'm not sure how much of that's guaranteed. So what do you think of those 4 guys? I assume you're happy to see Higgins come back. I like Smith for his leadership, and let's be honest, there's not a whole lot available out there at linebacker without spending a ton of money. So I didn't expect the Browns to make really a big splash in free agency at linebacker. I mean, the top guys, I think, were retained by their teams pretty much. So, what? Any thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, I'm extremely happy to have Higgins back. He's one of the most productive wide receivers the Browns have. Um, he whatever he and Mayfield have is special. It's you can't buy it. Um, I mean, you're talking about Higgins, who was at one point in time from this football team, and what he's done with Baker Mayfield, what they've done together, has been absolutely outstanding. Well, I think he finished last year ranked 48th of all wide receivers and didn't even play that many snaps.
Yeah,
His depth, yeah, his depth range on passes, he's always where Baker needs him, or he's always where Baker thinks he should be. Um, Apparently, Higgins doesn't practice as well as he plays. I think that's been some of the issue there.
I'd
But
rather have
those
it that
two
way
on
than
the
the other way. You know.
exactly, yeah. I mean, we've had plenty of training camp and practice warriors. Then come Sunday, can't play,
Yeah.
and we don't have that now. And whatever, like I said, whatever those two have, I wouldn't break it up. I said early in this process that they really need to keep the chemistry of the offense together for at least another year, um, so that they can build on what they had last year. But yeah, I think it's awesome. Issues that I think are going to come up as we get into the season, but we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out through preseason.
Yeah. So let's haven't really done this yet. Let's talk about wide receiver. You got OBJ and Landry and Higgins and Peoples Jones. The Browns tendered Kaderl Hodge. JoJo Natson, who'll be listed as a wide receiver if he makes a team. Probably not going to play much, I wouldn't think, as as a receiver. Do you think all those guys make the team? Forget about Nats and the other guys. And do you think that the Browns? Yeah. Do you think the
Back.
Browns? Do you think they draft a receiver this season?
It's gonna be interesting because what we got to look at is like, how's OBJ gonna feel when he's not a ton of targets? Is he okay with that? Um, that's
Yeah.
kind of where we got to see how the chemistry plays out because he's not going to get a lot of targets, especially if Higgins is on the field. OBJ is going to be covered. Baker will find Higgins, just like Landry doesn't care. He just wants to be a football player. Doesn't care about it. For don't realize that Landry's the number one. Higgins is number. How is OBJ going to fit in with in the system is going to be the question, and where they
Yeah.
go from there.
And you got three
And
tight
then
ends.
what
Then you got
happens if
Hunt.
they get a
And
speedster? Because that's really all they need is somebody that can flat out. And Baker will turn this into a show if he gets one of those. And they've congested up the middle, and you can get a speedster one on one with a safety. Baker will hit him all right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a different Fidel, and he wants to go as a player.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It should be interesting to see what they do there. I mean, um, the draft. I mean, I think Andrew Berry's trying to make it, and he's being pretty successful with it. This team's not going to be dependent on the draft. They're not going to be dependent on a rookie to come in and start and carry the team in any specific spot. They've pretty much got everything covered, at least partially, through free agency or guys that are returning. So, uh, looking at just the first few rounds of the draft, I think the Browns are going to have a lot of different ways they could go. I think if they don't sign Clowney or another defensive end edge guy, I think the thought would be that the Browns would lean that direction if that's the best, or if there's a good available edge guy at 26. But if they sign Clowney, man, all bets are off. They could still sign an edge guy.
Right.
Um, but, I think it makes them just just go to pretty much say, hey, who's the best player? And it might be who's the best defensive player, but it might not even be that at that point, based
No,
on who else they have.
it's very possible that they could draft a tackle. You got to remember, if you go ahead and get a top tier tackle now, while I don't say that, this is definitely going to happen, the draft, you're going to take a tackle. If you have a tackle that drops to you at 26 that has a top 5 or 6 grade that somehow just happens to fall to you, that can play right tackle, I mean, there's your chance to have a guy for the next 5 years, because you'll have the 5th-year option on his contract to be ready for whatever they want to do with Conklin when his contract runs out. And I think that's what and this is just speculation because I don't know, but I think that's kind of what AB's thinking, or Andrew Berry's thinking, is that, if I can get this team set to where whatever player falls to me with all these 3-year contracts or whatever I have, I don't remember if Conklin was 3 or 4. I thought it was 3.
I think these guys all have 2 seasons.
There, and I can draft them. So
I think they all have 2 seasons left. All 3 of those guys have 2 seasons left. Yeah.
So if there's a chance that you could grab a right tackle and set him on the bench for 2 years and have him ready to go, because you weren't forced to take somebody at that spot, that changes everything for this football team. And this is what good football teams have been doing, guys who don't have to have them start right away. I do think that the Browns need to address another corner, because I don't think you can start the season 100% ready for Greedy Williams, because the man's not even put pads on. It's nothing against Greedy Williams at all, and I'm not talking bad about him or anything like that. His nerve damage is in his shoulder. So we don't know what's going to happen when he puts the pads on. There's a lot of people that don't remember Howard Wilson. We thought this kid was going to be great from Houston. Do you remember him?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Injured his knee in the first training camp, and we were so excited to have him for the next year. Everybody was pumped up, and made it through a couple practices in training camp, injured his knee again, and he's out of the NFL.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare for that. And unfortunately, so we don't know. Greedy may go out, put pads on, go hit somebody, and go, no, I can't do this. And, it's nothing negative towards Greedy Williams at all, but he had a real injury. So Andrew Berry has to look at it that way as well. It's like, hey, I've got to have insurance here just in case. I do think AJ Green's going to probably move into Terrence Mitchell's spot. So they got a little bit of depth there, but they're going to need a starter at corner in case Greedy's not ready to go. And I hope he is. I hope the young man is 100% ready, goes out and becomes everything that a lot of people thought he was going to be. That's the best case scenario for the Browns. But they also have to look down the road a little bit.
Yeah, I think you have to look at Greedy, and I'm sure this is how the Browns are looking at it. You have to look at Greedy and Grant Delpit as wild cards this season, because you can't count on these guys this season. You have to see how they perform, how their health is, how they look on the football field. So I absolutely agree. I think the Browns need. I'm backtracking here a little bit, but on the offensive tackle. The Browns really need a swing man too. With Kendall Lamb gone, they need somebody there. So unless they sign somebody in free agency, they're probably going to have, which is a little scary, their third tackle coming from the draft. That's probably not preferable, but if it's a guy taken in the first round, it's a little more palatable, because the guy's probably going to be more likely to be ready. But man, if this cornerback class has so many guys that are bigger corners, if one of these top 4 or 5, maybe even 6 corners is sitting there at 26, it's going to be really hard to pass these guys up.
You can't. No. The the odds when you look at the way the draft breaks down and everything, statistically, I mean, 'cause your first round draft pick is a bet. I mean, that's just being honest, and it's an expensive bet because that money's guaranteed.
Yeah.
So if you're going to place a bet, you want to place it on the most likely player to hit on your bet, and that's defense, and that's corner. I mean, so you almost absolutely. It's not what I want. I have a player that I want. It's the linebacker from Notre Dame. But I also have to try to look at it from what I want or what Andrew Berry would do. And I think if a top corner is there, you almost absolutely have to take him. Because you can't have enough.
You don't want to say his name, Chad?
No.
It's all right.
I'm not saying his name.
We know who you're talking about.
Everybody knows who I'm talking about. I've been
quite
adamant about it. So, yeah, we started Browns Therapy and I said we were not going to say his name. We're not going to jinx it.
Well, I said it on the last podcast because we had Peter Jones on, and I heard he said it twice, so then I said it after him. So, yeah, I mean, you have to figure that the Browns at 26 with all the quarterbacks and all the edge guys and even all the wide receivers, man, you got to figure the Notre Dame guy, or Zaven Collins, or a couple of these corners, or an offensive tackle. The Browns are going to have their pick of a couple of these guys probably at 26.
Yeah, and it's quite possible that Andrew Berry wants to put on a little bit of a show, being that the draft's in Cleveland, and he doesn't need 9 draft picks. He uses a couple picks to move up a few spots and make a splash pick. And once again, a splash pick to him may be an offensive tackle. I'm not ruling that out. And some people can tell me I'm crazy or I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's I completely understand it. But they've already met with one of the top offensive tackles in the draft. I'm sorry?
I don't think you're crazy at all. I really hadn't thought of that. I was thinking a tackle more second or third round, but I could see it happening. But again, it's if the right guy's sitting there for him. They're not going to take a guy who's 2 years away with their pick number 26. It's got to be the right guy because I think otherwise the Browns are in a mode of, man, we want this team to be ready this season. So I think they're either going to feel like, hey, we're going to have a pick of these 3 or 4 guys at 26, so we're content with staying there, or we're like, man, we really like this guy. We're going to move up to 20 and get this guy. And also, they are not going to use those 9 picks. They are going to move up. And all over. I don't think they're going to pick more than 5 or 6 guys in this draft.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't rule out him completely trading a pick out of this draft and into the next.
So, yeah.
Like I had posted this once before that you could take let's say you got a 6th round pick. Somebody calls and says, "Hey, I really want that pick." We'll say, well, "Fine, we'll take your 5th round the next year." And then the next year you take that 5th round, you could turn it into a 4th round. In 2 years, you've taken a 6th and turned it into a 4th, and the probability of that player making the team jumps tremendously.
That sounds like something maybe you would do.
Yeah, because you could just keep rolling that each year. And that's how you start building long-term teams, because you're picking an extra pick or an extra 2 picks earlier in the draft every year. Your chances of keeping a player on there, because once you get past about the 4th round, I mean, between undrafted guys and draft pick guys, it's pretty even. I mean, you can find some really great undrafted players that'll make a football team.
Yeah, true. And just looking at the Browns roster, I mean, between the draft and undrafted guys, I mean, how many of these guys do you think are going to make the roster this year? It can't be more than maybe 5, I mean, maybe it's gonna be, it could be some on special teams guys, things like that, but I can't imagine it could be much more than 5 guys.
Right. It's going to be difficult. And then there is a tackle, Alex Taylor. The Browns really like him. I think he could play possibly both sides. I know he's prominently, but so yeah, there's not going to be easy for anybody to make this football team anywhere at any position. I think they're set at center. I think J.C. Shredder. I think they're going to try to keep him as long as they can. They got Nick Harris on 4 years, so he can grow into that position. The wild card is going to be Drew Forbes. What happens with him since he opted out? So, remember he was the player X, or I can't even remember what that was now. I'm sorry. Where they wrote that story about him, and nobody knew who they were talking about until after the draft. So, yeah. So it's not going to be easy to make a football team. It's going to be almost impossible to make it as a tight end. And I won't be shocked if they don't draft one to try to challenge Steve Carlson. Running back's going to be a nightmare to make, which they're already talking to running backs. I mean, that's going to be really difficult. Anything on offense is going to be extremely hard to make this football team. And man, what a change. What a change.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. So, all right. Well, any closing thoughts, Chad?
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for this team to finally have a foundation, because we've never had a foundation. It's always been trying to build a house on top of loose rocks, and I think it's going to be difficult for people outside of the Browns, because they enjoy the Browns being a dysfunctional franchise that's falling apart all the time, because it's easy to talk about and the fans just go crazy, and they don't have that anymore. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time before that starts slowly going away, and people are just going to have to realize that this is a well-run football team now that's not going to play by any of the old rules. There's going to be different things done that's never been done before. And it's exciting to be a longtime Browns fan and watch this process.
That's right. We didn't even get into the Wyatt Teller talk, and we've run long. So let me just ask you this. Will the Browns extend Wyatt Teller, or will he play out his current contract? Just your feeling.
I'm not 100% positive. How I would handle it if I was Andrew Berry is he plays out this contract, and if I have to, I franchise him next year. That's how I would do it. Just because because he's playing, I think, $900,000 this year. You're not going to replace the number one guard in football for $900,000, and tag next year, you're looking at $13-14 million. He's still well under that. Now, there is a potential that if somebody calls, his trade value is extremely high right now. And if Andrew Berry feels like he's got somebody that can replace him on the team, I don't want this. I love Wyatt Teller. I was a Wyatt Teller fan before anybody even hardly knew who. If Andrew Berry feels like that, let's say a Michael Dunn could step in, and I'm just using him as an example, there's a good chance that Andrew Berry could get a first or a second round pick. Maybe not a first, probably a second round pick, maybe multiple second for Teller. He may not turn it down, and I know people got mad at me when I posted that on the thing, but you got to look at this from a business point of view. I will hope Wyatt Teller stays with this football team for a long time, but you can't pay everybody.
You're absolutely right. We for so long have not had, there have been so few players that have stuck around on this team. All the good guys have left and everything, and we've had really very few good players on the Browns, and now we're to a point where we got so many good players, not going to be able to keep them all. We're just not. No. It's not going to happen. So you have to be able to look at it from a business standpoint, and that's how Andrew Berry's going to do it. Like you said, take that emotion out of the equation and make smart moves. And if trading Wyatt Teller, if Andrew Berry decides that that's the best thing to do, and they have a solid backup plan, then I think you have to respect that. But I think the way you're looking at it might be really smart too, because the alternative is probably to sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal, and you're probably paying him, 12 mil a year or more, anyways.
Yeah, outrageous pay. So it'd be cheaper in the long run to wait, play him out this year, tag him next year. Don't use that franchise. Pay Nick Chubb.
I'd
Pay
rather pay
Nick
Nick
Chubb
Chubb.
and yeah,
I would
pay
too.
Nick Chubb. So you leave the franchise tag available for next year, and then you tag Teller. Teller still gets his money, and it's controlled. Yeah, it'll be all guaranteed money, but that's when you can start looking that you want to start growing somebody to back him up, and you're not committed out to a long term. 900K this year. He plays. If he plays the whole year, great, great. That's awesome because he's going to
Yeah,
make $16 million next year, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that. Probably not as happy as a long, big contract, but I mean, got to remember this guy was traded for a couple third round picks
yeah.
not that long ago. And he found
True.
the right football team. And like I said, I love Wyatt Teller. He is awesome. And I hope that he can stay here for a long time. But if I'm the GM, that's how I would do it. He'd play out this year, I'd tag him next year.
Absolutely. Well, that is Chad P71. Chad, thanks for joining me on the podcast. It's been great talking to you.
You too, sir.
This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you next time.